Welcome to the Health in Motion podcast. I am your host, Evie. I am a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner who loves to help people achieve their wellness goals they once thought were impossible to reach. I am the owner of Holistically Restored, and through my coaching practice, I have been able to guide my clients through their own health journeys and teach them to truly understand their body. With a focus on hormone, thyroid, and weight management, I strive to instill the knowledge, confidence, and encouragement everyone deserves. If you enjoy this content, I'd love for you to subscribe and also leave a review on Apple Podcast. Please tell your friends, family, or anyone who is curious about bettering themselves in a holistic way. The more, the merrier. Please keep in mind this podcast is created for educational purposes only and is not to be taken as medical advice. I am so happy you're here and ready to learn. Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. I'm so glad you're back, Kyle. Welcome. It's nice to have you back on the podcast. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely. It's been great to get to know you even more from the first episode and then running into you in person at dinner that one night.
Yes. Yeah,
that was nice.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, I wanted to have Kyle back on the podcast because he is a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge. And there's just so many things that he does for his own health and his family's health, and that I think would be beneficial for us to hear and get a different perspective on. Because if you're new here, we did an episode on red light therapy exclusively when Kyle was on previously. He's the owner of Midwest Red Light Therapy, and he has a few other companies as well. So if you have not listened to that, I do recommend you go back and check that episode out. If you are listening to this after already listening to the Midwest Red Light Therapy episode, then we're going to dive into a few other topics that kind of stem off of the red light. Again, their overall health benefits. And so Kyle's going to give us some information on some of these topics, and then maybe how he applies it in his life. So then ultimately you can take away some things of how to apply this in your own life. Because we were talking before we recorded, and that's what we really want, is for this to be applicable for people. So we're going to get into some really good health topics, little health categories for us to consider on the day-to-day. And so I'm excited for us to dive in. So Kyle, if you want to go ahead and just kind of talk through some things. I know we wanted to talk originally or from the start on red light. I know we did an extensive episode on that, but what are some other things about red light that maybe we didn't touch on or are applicable for people who maybe have devices or are interested in getting devices that they could know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I could probably go on and on for days about red light, but this conversation, I wanted to, like you said, talk about some other topics. I do think light is a huge aspect of health and things we should be focusing on, especially with our modern LCDs and devices, TVs, lights, everything. But, I think, like I said, that's just one aspect. So, but yeah, I'd love to start talking about red light. Yeah, no, one more thing I wanted to mention before we get into it is just that I've listened to probably hundreds of podcasts, probably for the last 5 to 8 years. And I love them. And the thing that I always kind of looked for in podcasts is the one practical takeaway, or at least one that I could implement in my life. And over the years, I've gained a ton of them. And, and they've ultimately changed my life and my family's life, and just really excited about it. And a lot of the times I, hang out with friends or family members, I want to share this stuff. But what I've learned over these years is not everybody's on the same level with what they're trying to do with themselves, how they're trying to improve themselves. And, some people are and some people aren't. And not all the time am I hanging out with people that want to hear about this stuff. So being able to reach out on a podcast like this with people, maybe I don't know, maybe I'll get to know, but, they have the choice to turn it off if they're not interested, if they're not looking for, a practical takeaway. But if somebody is, I'd love to give back to, I guess, the internet a little bit and to people that might be interested. So I just wanted to say that because that's something I'm passionate about. I don't know if I said it right because I'm still a little nervous, but
no, you did. And it makes sense because you're right. I think about that too. I want people to actually take something from this. I don't want them just to listen. It's not just for me to talk, right? It's right. To give some practical advice. And I know that we did that in the first one. And so the topics that we're going to cover today, I know are going to be really great too.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on some basic stuff, in your day-to-day, what we can do that I've found, reading books, podcasts that can kind of move the needle a little bit more for you. Shortcuts. I've tried to come up with, a name for it if we were to title these things. And I don't really have a good one other than just like practical advantages that you could take, or practical suggestions, cheat codes, if you will. But yeah, getting into red light therapy. One thing, I just wanted to name a couple of quick things that people don't always think of when they think of red light therapy. One of them, we always take our red lights to the beach. So when we go on a beach vacation, it's really good at preconditioning the skin to allow your body to absorb more UV safely. And there's been studies that show this. But aside from studies, you can just do it. I'll take the light to the beach, or before we go out on the boat, or even just to the pool in the backyard. If you use your red light beforehand, you'll notice you're not going to get as burned. And there's a whole lot of science in it about how your mitochondria creates melatonin inside the cell. We're familiar with how, our pineal gland creates melatonin for us to sleep. Well, we also create it inside the mitochondria, which is crazy. And it's kind of a newer development. But what it does is it essentially creates an antioxidant for that cell. To shorten kind of what that means is your body's able to handle the stress from the UV exposure. So using it before you go to the pool or the beach, or, out in the sun, and then afterwards you can use it. So we always use it before we go on the beach. And then if somebody looks a little pink or red when you're coming off the beach, in the evening, we'll use it again. And you won't sleep with that hot skin, that inflamed skin that we're all so used to feeling on spring break, because we've been in the winter, we go to spring break, and then you go to bed that night and you're just on fire. And it takes that fire off your skin, that inflammation, which is what it is. So that's a really common use that people aren't thinking of with red light therapy. I take it everywhere. I take it even though that knowing that I'm not going to get burned off for other people's purposes. And we've turned on so many people to red light therapy just for that purpose. Another one that's very common that I get excited about is using it before exercise. And you'll notice that if you're a runner or a lifter, you'll be able to run or lift a little more than you normally can. It just preconditions the body to be able to take that stress. What it also does, and the tests have shown, the different studies have shown, is that you have less damage from your muscles, less soreness. So, which is great. So, if you're lifting, you don't want to be extremely sore the next day, or running, or, doing any kind of physical activities. So using it before is a great usage. We talked a little bit in the last podcast about using it on your private parts, for hormone purposes. That's safe. I think a lot of people that's one of their first questions. Should I be completely naked? Will it harm anything? And yes, please be naked. Please use it. It will not harm you. It's only going to benefit you. And then the last thing is eyesight. We touched a little bit about it on the last podcast, but yeah, there's a lot of people that I get contacted with, customers that, use the light, not directly real close on their face or eyes, but, having it on in the room, standing back a little, looking to the side or above, not directly staring into the light. And then their eyesight improving. A lot of the studies that show that is for people over 40 that have declining eyesight. The mitochondria, or I should say the eyes, are very dense with mitochondria, along with the heart and the brain. So those areas are going to benefit if you're using this light.
Okay.
So yeah, that was just something that I don't always get to tell people about. So I wanted to start off with that.
Yeah, that's a really good information. I actually have a question about the, let's say you do get sunburnt or a little pink from being out in the sun. Do you want to red light all areas? Because what if it's your front and your back, or does it standing in front of it do the same thing as the skin on the back, or would you need the back of your skin to be exposed too?
So there's kind of two answers to that. Personally, I do both sides.
Okay.
But if I'm just burned on my back, say I was laying down, fell asleep on my stomach, and all the burn is on my back, I would probably just do the back. But yes, both sides are important. There's been some studies that are interesting where they were testing people with tennis elbow. And, tennis elbow, you would typically have it only in one arm. And the study was in that they would test the opposite arm or they would treat it, I should say, treat that opposite arm. And then they noticed the inflammation or the swelling being relieved in the opposite arm. So there's systemic benefits from using it anywhere on your body. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to skin, I would directly shine it on that area.
Okay.
If your face was burned, I would scoot back a little bit and use it on your face. But that's not to say that if you shined it on your back, it wouldn't help your face.
Okay.
So it's complicated, but yes, any way you use it, it's going to benefit. Personally, I would put it where I feel hot or where that inflammation is specifically.
Okay, cool. That sounds good. Yeah. Nice and helpful.
Awesome. Yeah. I guess the next thing I wanted to dive into is probably the most popular thing that everybody's using is cell phones. You know?
Yeah.
Which is crazy raising kids. I have, it's hard to believe they're 14 and 10, but, somehow we've still got the little guy, 10-year-old, he doesn't have a cell phone, but he's got an iPad. But, I'm constantly on them. And since the day that we put one in their hand, I've explained to them that, and there's basic things, and that's just what I wanted to cover is the first thing, and they know this, they could probably recite what I'm about to say here, is don't use the device if it's plugged into the wall. It seems harmless because we look, we smell, we feel. It doesn't look smell or feel any different. But if you have a meter for it, like an EMF meter, you'll see that thing is just glowing. In other words, if you need to charge it, set it down, walk away, charge it. So I don't let anybody in our family use a device or a laptop while it's plugged into the wall. The other thing is when it's touching you, if it's in your pocket, anywhere near you, it has to be on airplane mode.
Okay.
And, they're used to me saying that. And my daughter's, well, how am I going to get the phone call if it's in my pocket? It's like, well, don't put it in your pocket if you're waiting for a phone call. So there's a lot of simple things. People don't like to hear any of this stuff, but I have to say it because, it's damaging. I mean, when you buy an iPhone, there's instructions in it, or I should say there's paperwork in it that tells you that it's damaging if it's touching you. So everybody knows it. The studies show it. Put it on airplane mode. Right now, my phone, though I'm holding it, is on airplane mode. So it's always on airplane mode unless I'm using it. And when I'm using it, I'm not afraid to hold it. I've seen people go a little over the top with that where they're afraid to hold their phones. But whatever. Yeah. The last thing I wanted to mention, well, two more things is one is at night, middle of the night, if you need to look at your phone, turn it red. And on my Instagram page, you can see how to turn your phone red. Mm-hmm. I think it's one of the highlights or story highlights or whatever it's called. But it's very basic. It's called a screen filter. You can turn it red. It'll emit very little. I mean, just minute amount. And it's the backlight of blue. But more or less, your screen's red. You can look at it in the middle of the night. It won't disrupt your melatonin release, which is so important. I mean, we could have a whole episode about what melatonin is doing for us. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is turn it red if you're going to look at it in the middle of the night. Better yet, don't look at it. But the last thing is I use Night Shift. It's on. It's just a little filter for the colors on an iPhone. I've never had another phone, so I don't know what they would have to do. But Night Shift takes off that kind of blue spike, makes it a little more orange. But I leave it on. You can schedule it. In other words, set the time when it starts and goes off. And I literally set it for 11:59 to 12 o'clock. So it goes all 24 hours minus a minute. So anytime you look at my phone, it's a little slightly orange, and it makes a huge difference. Like when somebody hands me their phone and I look at it and it doesn't have it, it like hurts my eyes because I'm so used to this.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably blinding to look at someone else's phone. When they don't have that.
I think people get used to it. Like I said, when I see somebody else's, it feels uncomfortable, but that's mainly because I'm used to seeing mine with an orange glow to it. Mm-hmm. So those are real practical things you can do on your phone that will save you a lot of health. I mean, it's not gonna burn your eyes. A lot of kids are having damage with their eyes. We see it because we're raising kids. A lot of kids have glasses at a very early age. And everybody's saying, well, I think it's genetics. And it's like, man, not really.
Yeah, I know.
It's
It's more of
not, I
like,
mean, the numbers are huge.
right. It's more of the epigenetics of our DNA hasn't really changed. It's the environment that we're living in that's changed. And I think you said something that was really important when it comes to the cell phones and all that is because it doesn't give off a smell or it doesn't look like it's doing anything, we don't realize how harmful it can be. So I think that's why it's so easy for us to continue on holding these things, even though we know. And we
Yeah,
also know, I mean, you and I are right now, we're wearing wired headphones. Right. And we're going to talk a little bit
absolutely.
about that. But I
Sure.
very rarely, only when I'm at the gym, and I try to avoid it if I can, wear
Yeah.
Bluetooth headphones. I'm always trying to do wired headphones if I have to have any in, because that's also going to reduce the EMF exposure. So it's just, again, little tiny things that you can try and implement. And these are really, really good tips. So I'm excited for people to hear this one. Anything else on cell phone that would be helpful?
No, but while you're just saying that, it made me think of another thing that I see a lot is just especially with my kids, it's very obvious is if people see other people doing something, they kind of assume it's safe,
Yeah.
which is really weird. But I think it's just social. Uh, I don't know. It's just natural for people to look around and say, well, he's been doing it and he's fine. And it's like, well, we don't know if he's fine, but we do know he's doing it. And, we've got information that tells us that we shouldn't do it. So I'm constantly saying that to my daughter who's 14, like her parents will let her do that, but you're not allowed to do that. And that's just how it is. And here's why. I explained to him why. And my daughter mocks me a little bit about it, but she knows a lot of things that her teachers and friends don't know anything about. And I think that's the job as a parent is to teach them stuff that they'll know their whole life, that'll keep them in the right direction.
Absolutely. And then they can, as their friends get older, maybe their friends will become interested in this as well. And then that'll just ripple over. It's really nice when I see people, even like something that I share on Instagram, I then see someone else post about it. And then
Yes.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
now their whole audience is seeing that too, which is great because now it's just this ripple effect. So the more people that can get this information, share it, the more people that are going to benefit from it. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah, definitely. So I know you also wanted to talk about circadian rhythm. When you know that I love that. So what are we going to talk about for circadian rhythm?
Yeah, you are a great advocate for that. I love
Thank
seeing
you.
your morning walks, and
Yes.
yeah, one thing that I don't know that you always mention, but I always notice is you'll be outside when it's overcast, and a lot of people think there's no benefits to that, and it's huge that there is. There really is, and that's sometimes the hardest time to do it. I've been doing this for I don't know 5+ years, where I wake up and immediately go outside, and it puts you in touch with nature. It puts you in touch with, and I know that sounds kind of cliche or whatever, but you know what you're going to wear later that day. You know how you're going to feel. You know what to expect. A lot of people wake up and they don't go outside until they're fully dressed and ready to attack the day. And if you wake up and immediately go outside, it starts your day differently. But yeah, the basics of circadian rhythm to me and how it applies to my life and how I've got an advantage on that is, yeah, I wake up, I don't look at my phone. I wear my blue blockers. That might be over the top for a lot of people, but I wear them until I walk out the door. And I walk out on my back porch and walk out, hopefully barefoot. Sometimes it gets pretty cold here in Ohio. And you go outside and stand out there anywhere from a minute to 20 minutes. And 20 minutes is when it's absolutely gorgeous out, and a minute is when it's just middle of winter and it's freezing.
Yeah.
But either way, it signals to our body to stop releasing melatonin and start our day. It spikes your cortisol, which you're supposed to do, and it just gets you going in a way that feels in line with what's going on outside. Um, in the evening, okay, I should back up. There's other ways to get your circadian rhythm started, and it can essentially happen with light, food, or activity. And so if you're really out of whack, you got social jet lag or whatever, you can't sleep in the middle of the night. I don't know how many people I talk to anymore that tells me, well, I can fall asleep, but I wake up in the middle of the night, I can't go back to sleep. And it's like, I used to have all this problems. Like I experienced them just like everybody else until I figured out some real basic stuff. And none of this is complicated. None of it's hard, but it all starts with not looking at your phone when you wake up, going outside. Now, if you want to add more to that to really dial it in, immediately go outside and start doing something, whether it's a couple of sit-ups, push-ups, jumping jacks, I mean, anything to get your heart raised. That helps tell your body that, hey, it's time to wake up, and right now is morning. Another thing is eat. There's all these people doing this intermittent fasting. It's super trendy. And, I don't eat until 2:00. And it's like, well, that's great and all, but, something that tells your body that the day has started is food. So those three things right there are huge. Wake up, eat, and exercise. If you do that right when you wake up, you will sleep completely different that night. And even if it's not that night, if you do that a couple days in a row, you're going to be sleeping way better. And that's just basic stuff. So the other half of that is, after the sun sets, and there's way more to this, but I just want to keep it super simple. When the sun sets and you're getting ready for bed, those kind of seem to be very similar time frame nowadays.
Yeah.
But as we get closer to the summer solstice, there'll be 3 or 4 hours difference. If you wear your blue blockers an hour or two before bedtime, it'll lock your body into what time it is, and you'll sleep way better. People are caught up thinking that you need the red lenses versus the orange lenses. Those are our two different blue blockers we sell for evening usage. I tell people to start with the orange. They block 100% blue light. The reds block 100% blue and a lot of the green. But they make it a lot harder to get used to. It's harder to see with. But either way, both of them work. I recommend the orange if you've never tried. Wear it an hour or two before bed, and you'll sleep different. Personally, I'll wear them, and within 20, 30 minutes, my eyes will start watering and, signaling to my body, like, yeah, we got to go to sleep here soon, even if I don't feel tired. So, but doing these things consistently throughout the day or throughout a week, will lock you into a rhythm, and that rhythm will give you better sleep. And if you're sleeping better, your cells are repairing and rebuilding, and you're fighting off cancer, and you're building hormones. You're just doing everything you're supposed to do, and it's all about sleep. But yeah, I think that was all. I have more to talk about sleep, but as far as circadian rhythm, other than that, using red lights around the house or orange lights are way better than using your daytime lights. Lights matter, and we talked about that a lot in the last podcast, so I don't want to.
Well, I want to follow up from that, actually. So, since the last podcast episode, I got the orange lenses, and you know that I wear those like every night. So I'm wearing those, and I really can tell a difference. And I've got the way that I know that I can tell a big difference is by wearing the orange tinted ones compared to the clear ones that I have during the day when I'm working on the computer for a long time. Is if I go out somewhere, I actually do take my glasses with me because I know they work that well that I want my glasses. Like at the end of the night, if I'm with my friends, I will take them and I'll wear them. I was babysitting my nephew, and after I put him to bed, I put those things on because I'm like, well, I'm going to go to bed in a few hours anyways. Like that's how much I know they work, is that I'm willing to take them out in public with me and use them elsewhere. And I also know I have clients that use them as well, because I'll, we talk a lot about circadian rhythm with clients. And so I always link those glasses. And when they get them, we'll meet in a couple weeks, we'll do follow-up sessions. And I'm like, so how's sleep? What are the things that you've noticed? And they say, well, ever since I got the glasses, I actually am staying asleep throughout the night. Because same thing, I have a lot of clients who come to me I can fall asleep, but I can't stay asleep. But they're like, I'm noticing that I'm staying asleep, or I wake up and I feel more rested, or I don't feel so groggy in the morning. And so it's really cool to see this being like this ripple effect we were talking about. And I have a few clients, and myself included, I got the red light bulb. So I've put that in my bedroom. So I'll sit in the bedroom with a red light at night. And it really does set the tone for, okay, it's time to go to bed. It's time to relax. And I've done the thing where I've had the red light bulb in. So my room is like really red. And then I'll be looking at my phone, and I have the red screen on my phone, but it still feels too bright. And so it doesn't even, like, I don't even want to be looking at it because it's not relaxing at that point, because the room is relaxing, but the phone is not. So it's even better to like, okay, everything's falling into place here. So I wanted to mention that because it is effective, and I've noticed a big difference. And so I highly recommend, if you're going to start with something, start with maybe the blue light blocking glasses, like the evening ones, or the bulb. I got the bulb, and I got the flicker, or the string lights for my nephews for Christmas. So they have that in their room now. So I'm trying to get the whole family on the red light.
Yeah, it's both of those are one of those things when you first start using them, or even before that, you see other people using them. You're like, that's kind of weird. Like they're wearing weird glasses, and they got a weird light in their room. And then once you start using it, you're like, oh man, this is great. I've got a lot of family members and friends and stuff that don't use those items, but they come over and see me using them. And then when I first started doing this, 5 or 6 years ago, wearing these things and having these lights on, it was awkward for me still, but I knew the benefits because I read all about it. And then not very much long after that, I just kind of gave up thinking about what other people think. Like, I don't really care anymore because I know what it's doing for me. I know what it's providing me and benefiting me with. So it's, you get over how weird you look. Now, wearing the orange lenses in public, like you were mentioning, is another step. And, I do it at the airports. I do it in the plane. And years ago, you would see more funny looks, and you would hear more comments about Bono. You look like Bono or whatever. Yeah. And now it's like, you don't even hear it. Nobody really even looks. So people are catching on. And, the whole house being red is still new to people, but I don't know. We're used to it. But the first step is not caring what other people think and taking care of yourself. And that's obviously a lesson I'm always teaching my kids.
Right. I love it.
So, well, it's good to hear you're using that stuff and sharing the word. That helps me a lot too.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing that I wanted to touch on, it's a huge topic of mine. That I'm passionate about. I've taken over the top many times, is just water. I've read too much about water. Our bodies are mainly made up of water. This planet's mostly made up of water. Everything is water. And, once you start digging into what's going on with our water supply, it gets kind of scary. It's just like a lot of other topics that have to discuss, our planet. But our water's pretty contaminated, and that sucks, because I'm a water person. I love swimming. It's my favorite thing to do. I go to the beach twice a year. Those are my favorite things to do. And the whole time I'm swimming. But either way, we have to drink clean water. And there's a lot of companies that, Brita, we all started off with Brita. It filters your water. People got the filter on their fridge. And that does okay, but that's letting through a lot of stuff that you don't really want to drink. And I don't want to get into what all those things are, because my job, I've tried to define my job as being something that I don't want to scare people into making a decision. I want to encourage them or motivate them. Mm-hmm. But all I want to say is there's a couple of products that I use that are very affordable, that you can start using immediately. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of products that are not affordable that do great too. I'm just not going to mention those because I don't think that's going to help anybody. I mean, nobody's got $2,000 to $4,000 for a home water filtration if you've never taken the first step to understand what's in your water. So one of the products I wanted to mention, I came across through Shark Tank, and it's called HydroVive, V-I-V, HydroVive. And what they do is really unique. And I contacted the company and talked to support for 3 hours one day, just totally nerding out on it. What they do is based on your shipping zip code, they look up your water, your water system, your nearest water plant, I guess. And they get the report, and then they build specifically a filter for your water that you would be filtering, which is amazing. So I called them and went through the process online with them, and it's all free. They're cool with that. They're there to explain it to you. they call their helpers water nerds, which I like to think of myself as. And so, yeah, we went through and discussed what's in our water supply. We do have fluoride, which is one of the things that I'm concerned about, but it's I live in Mason, Ohio. It's very low, actually, compared to a lot of other places. So that made me happy. But along with that, there's a lot of other chemicals. They call them forever chemicals that come from Teflon products that, that we've been selling and throwing into, dumpsters and landfill for, 30 years now, 50 years now. But whatever, that stuff, apparently, just the name alone, forever chemicals, kind of scares you. But
Yeah.
we have to filter our water, and we have to do a good job with it, I believe. And HydroVive will make you a custom filter for a couple $100. And we use that so we can literally just turn the sink and it comes out filtered. Another product that we also use, mainly camping, is a pitcher, and it's clearly filtered.
Yeah, that's what I have in my office.
Yeah, it's great. It's a little more expensive if you were to use it as much as we do, which is about 2 fill-ups a day. I think it's $65 for 3 months. So I don't know, $22 a month or something like that. That's great. I think water is important. And those 2 products right there are a great starter for anybody that wants to start caring about their water. Last thing I want to say about water is when we're making pasta and stuff, we have filtered water for that. I even do it for my plants, just because I'm crazy about water.
Yeah.
So.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. And the clearly filtered. So I've had a Berkey for a really long time, and that's definitely more expensive. I don't know. We've had that for probably within the past 3-4 years now, but I wanted something for the office and I didn't want to buy a Berkey. And so I got a clearly filtered pitcher and I really like it. And I actually asked for, and I received as like a gift, a clearly filtered water bottle, which is nice. And I don't know if you have one since you travel a lot, but it's nice because if you are somewhere and all you have accessible is tap water, then you have a water bottle that has a filter built in inside and it's clearly filtered, which I trust them. I like their products. So I thought that was cool too, because that's affordable. It's the same about like as a Hydro Flask or something, or like a Yeti. So I thought that was nice to have while you're traveling or if you're out camping or something. So I'm glad you brought up clearly filtered.
Yeah, that's a great company, great product. They also have an under the sink setup that's really easy to install, but it's a little more expensive, and that's why I didn't mention that.
Yeah.
But I used their water bottle when I went to Jamaica last time.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so everywhere I go, you can have great quality filtered water.
Yeah. No, very, very important.
Yeah. Any of these topics, I feel like I could do a whole podcast on. Not that I'm like the authority for it, but I'm passionate about it, and I can say what I've learned and what I've, the mistakes I've made in any of them to possibly help somebody else that wants to learn more about these topics.
Definitely.
The other one I wanted to talk about that my kids hate and whatnot, but I think it's extremely important, and it's hard to bring this up around friends or family because a lot of people are just so used to, like I mentioned it earlier, so I'll just cut myself off there. But our Wi-Fi, we don't take it to the point where we hardwire our house. We do use Wi-Fi. A lot of people that are in my situation, they wire their house to avoid all those signals. But I don't know. I feel like it's very noticeable that I can protect my house that way, but these signals are coming from every house around me. So it's, I can't block the world. So
right.
So that's not my goal. So I'm overlooking that. And what we do is we have, just like you would have on Christmas lights, we have an outlet timer that, so our Wi-Fi starts at like 6 a.m. or 5:30. I don't know exactly when it is. And then turns off at right around midnight, 11:30, something like that. And so everybody knows that you can't use, we're done watching TV. Obviously we should be, and we're off our devices at those times. So when we're sleeping, we're not getting bombarded by our own Wi-Fi signal.
I like that.
It's a very simple $7, solution to having your Wi-Fi. And I've done that. I've given family members just these timers and people still don't even use it. So it's like, whatever, But somebody out there, hopefully listening to this, will benefit from that little tidbit. It's a basic thing that you can do. The other thing that's a little weirder, but I've been doing it for years, is any EMF source, it's more dangerous the closer you are to it, right? And there's ways to make a lot of these routers, Wi-Fi routers, are just set at a certain strength. We live in a small house, so we don't need that thing blasting like you would at a big house. So one thing I've tested and built was just took a cardboard box and wrapped it with aluminum foil, and we set it over the router, and that decreases the strength of the Wi-Fi. Now, my daughter's room's probably farthest from that. So every now and then she'll be like, Dad, I'm taking the box off. So she can do, a Skype call or whatever she's doing. And she knows to put it on when she's done. Our living room's closer to this Wi-Fi box. So if we're all in the living room, we're more protected, So it's just a little bit, it gives you a little more control over your environment. And like I said, you can just go up and switch the thing off with this timer. You just hit a switch and it turns off the whole outlet. So having those controls makes a big difference.
Yeah. And you said the box, it's a cardboard box with aluminum foil. Is that on the inside or the outside of the box?
I put it on the outside.
And you put the box like upside down over top of or do you set yeah, right. You would put it over top.
Yeah, so I ripped off the top part of it essentially and then flipped the box upside down.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah. Like if you're going to trap a cat in a box, you would take the top part off and flip it upside down. And we just set it on there and we still have Wi-Fi all over the place. It's just decreased in the intensity. And there's all kinds of meters. You can test it with your phone to see the strength of your Wi-Fi. And it's just the less strength or the less strong you have your Wi-Fi blasting you, the better it is for you.
Yeah.
And the goal is to just still be able to use your devices and be able to send stuff. So that's just a simple little hack that, I don't know, somebody might benefit from.
Definitely. I've been looking into that and I have an episode coming out on EMFs and Wi-Fi and all that exclusively. So this is really good timing. Yeah, so definitely. And it's funny because in my office, my router is really close to me. And so I'm like, I really need to do something about this. But at home, I'm at the farthest away that I can from the router. And we've actually been doing some wiring. So that way we try not to be on Wi-Fi. So anytime I'm using a device, I'm trying to have it hooked up instead of Wi-Fi. But yeah, so this is really interesting timing. And now I think I'm going to try that box out for the router at my office so that since I'm so close to it.
Oh, yes. I've been doing it forever. It's a great move.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, I was talking to, this is the last thing I'll say on it. And I don't want to scare anybody, but I do want people to understand that it's not the safest device. Wi-Fi routers are not super safe.
Right.
One guy contacted me, a customer, and he was trying to buy a red light therapy device because he spent 2 nights at a friend's house. It might have been family. I don't know. Either way, he was staying at somebody else's place. And he woke up and had decreased vision in his eyes. And he's like, he couldn't figure out what happened. And the next day he woke up. So he stayed 2 nights. The next day he woke up and it was even worse. And when he was getting ready to leave the place, he found that the Wi-Fi router was underneath where he was sleeping.
Wow.
It was like underneath this futon or whatever. So yeah, he chalked it up to that because he's like, I don't know what else it could have been.
Yeah.
But that stuff freaks me out here. And that's not the only story I've heard of that. That's just one that I want to relay. You don't want it super close to you. It affects us. Our whole body is electrical, and that, our brain sends electrical signals through our nerves to feel and sense and report back. And if we're bombing it with different electrical signals, we're not going to work the same. It's just basic. That's not hard to imagine.
Right. Yeah. Definitely good tips.
Yeah. Yeah. Shooting from that electrical topic, grounding, you talk about a lot. And I just want to touch on it because there's a couple of basic things you can do with grounding. Very popular nowadays, that wasn't when I got into it, is the grounding pads. So you can have a pad in your room. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it on different websites. I can't remember the name of the company that first started it. But either way, you can buy a pad, and most people plug it into their outlet, into the round part, which is the grounded part of your outlet. You know how you have a 3-prong outlet.
Yeah.
But my advice on that is do not do that, because you're making a huge assumption that your house is wired properly. And my experience is most houses aren't necessarily wired properly. Even if you bought a new one, I used to work in HVAC many, many moons ago. And so I saw when they were building houses, and I saw the people coming in, and the people doing your HVAC and the people doing your plumbing and stuff. They had a short period of time that they had to have it installed, and they were getting rushed from all the other contractors. And it's a race. So to assume that stuff is done properly is just an assumption.
Mm-hmm.
The safe way to do it is to buy through these companies. They have a metal rod that goes in your backyard. You run it in through a window. You can shut the window and lock it just normal. And from that, go to the pad.
Okay.
So that way you're actually touching the earth with it. You're not touching your house's electricity. And that's what I do. We have one in our living room, and I'm always constantly, either when I do my stretches or if I'm just laying there watching TV with the kids, I've got my foot or my hand touching it. The more you can be grounded, the better. I don't know that I want to go into the whole benefits of that, because that, like I said, could be a whole podcast. But the things that I notice that it helps with is soreness of muscles, but more importantly, it helps with anxiety, stress. It's just we want to be touching the earth barefoot as much as possible. But you and I live in Ohio, and we can't physically do that all the time. So having a pad like this is huge. Mm-hmm. I've read books on the topic, and I've studied this for years, and it helps people with snoring, any kind of inflammation, anxiety. Those are kind of the bigger ones. And I hear a lot of people saying, my daughter or I or my husband or somebody has anxiety. And I'm like, start with basic stuff, which is sleep and grounding. I mean, please start there. Don't go to drugs, or don't start taking melatonin, or, just start with basic stuff. And a grounding pad costs you $30. It'll last forever, and it'll pay you back so much. But I don't want to get on that too much or talk about that too much, because there's other things you can do. Earth Runners makes a sandal that allows you to walk around and not get mud or dirt or step on glass, and you're still grounded. It's got a copper pin in the bottom with copper laces. I guess they're thin pieces of copper infused through the laces in the sandals that allow you to be grounded but not barefoot. But if you're running, they make things that I've seen on Amazon that are little things that go inside your shoe and then go around to the bottom of the shoe. It just sticks on your running shoe, and it allows you, when you're running, to have something that's touching the earth and touching your leg. And there's huge benefits to running grounded because of inflammation.
Okay. That's really cool. I knew about the Earth Runners. I didn't know about putting on your gym shoe, though. That's really cool.
Oh, yeah. And there's some for boots as well. So like in laboratories where they're doing a lot of electronics, they have to wear these boot straps, heel strap. I think they're called heel straps. And they essentially ground out. You know how you walk up and you touch somebody and you shock them?
Yeah.
Well, if you're working in a laboratory with computers and you shock the system, it can like blow everything up. So they have to wear these heel straps, and you can buy a heel strap on Amazon. And that way it grounds out your electricity. So it's another simple thing, $7. You can wear them, put them on your boots. So when you go out in the morning, you can be grounded and still wear your favorite boots. So
I like
those are simple things that people don't know about, that, because they're like, I can't be grounded. It's, there's snow on the ground, or it's raining or something. It's like, well, you could. Maybe $7 would cost you.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. I did not know about those, actually. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, that's just something I kind of found out years ago and used them through a couple winters. And it made a big difference.
Yeah. What I would like to do is I'm taking notes of these. I want to put these in the show notes for people to check out. I think this would be great if there's some links of stuff, so we'll touch base on that. But I think this is definitely a lot of good information. So I want to make sure we have links for ones that make sense and are available. So.
Yeah. And I also want people to feel like they can contact me with any of the questions, like what were you talking about here or there? that's one of the challenges I have here. Is like I do a lot of social media, and a lot of people don't make it very social. So that's what I'm trying to do. Is I want people to reach out and ask me about this stuff, because I'm trying to connect with more people like you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the ways I'm trying to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the goal. Like I said, I hang out with a lot of people that just they're not interested in any of this stuff. And I know there are people that care and want to kind of take their health to a different level. And, these little shortcuts are huge. And I love sharing them, because it's like, I don't know, it just makes me feel good.
Yeah,
so.
No, I like it. I'm all in this. This is all really good. I'm into all this stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that I like, another topic that I see you talking about a lot, but I do want to say it because it's moved the needle for me a lot, is just learning about 10-minute walks or bike rides or 10-minute activity, I like to call it, anytime after you eat. So if you eat breakfast, I just bought a indoor exercise bike. So I'll just sit on that bike and pedal for 10 minutes roughly, sometimes 15. And, I'll be checking my email or doing this or that. And it's perfect. Using your legs specifically as your biggest muscles, it helps pump what absorbs the glycogen, the sugars that you ate, into these muscles and starts recycling it rather than just sitting on the food. It ultimately helps you stabilize your blood sugar. It helps with digestion. It helps with blood pressure. It's just huge. And it's the simplest thing you can do. And you don't have to sit on a bike. You could just walk. I have a treadmill on my back porch that I bought for, I don't know, $35 or something like that. And I never run on it. I just walk on it.
Yeah.
That's a little more dangerous, but the safest thing is, and honestly, the best is what you do, is just go walk outside.
Yeah. And it's not a strenuous walk either. And you're not strenuously biking. It's very gentle, right? It's gentle.
Absolutely.
The GI tract does need, it's working, it's digesting, which is a lot of work. So we're not saying to go like run after you eat. It's more of this gentle, soft movement just to get things moving a little bit. So I always worry when people hear me say that they're thinking, I'm like, you should go run a mile after you eat. Yeah. And I'm like, no. It's a gentle walk. It's a gentle bike or whatever. So
it makes you feel different too.
It does.
You'll notice you'll have less gas, less, you'll be less tired. But ultimately you just feel better. You're in a better mood. And that's one of the simplest things. Sometimes I feel like I get caught up looking for, a real hard thing to do to make the biggest impact. And this one's just so basic. Just move around a little bit. And it could be anything, but the worst thing you can do for 10 minutes after you eat is just sit there and stare at a screen indoors. If you want to look at that screen, go outside and walk for a minute. But yeah, those things, if you can do it twice a day after breakfast and lunch, you're winning. If you can do it all 3 meals or however many times you eat, you'll notice it immediately, and it'll help you a lot. So basic stuff. But yeah, I did want to talk about blood pressure. I went to the doctor. I never go to the doctor, but I went, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago. I think it was before I went on that Jamaica trip that I referenced earlier. And the doctor told me that I had pre-hypertension. And I just looked at him like, no, I don't, dude. And he's like, no, well, I'll show you. And he made me do the blood pressure thing again. And I think he made me do it like 6 times. And it got real awkward because I felt like he was like trying to prove a point. And but whatever. I was like, no, I'll figure this out. So I went home. And on the way home, I stopped and bought one of those arm cuff blood pressure at home taking machine thing.
Yeah.
And so I just started taking it. And it started a whole thing for me, is learning about blood pressure. What is it? I always assumed that it had to do with stress. Like if I'm stressed out, I have high blood pressure. And I think I thought of that because anytime you hear people say, oh, that raised my blood pressure, you associate it with somebody being stressed out or angry. So I had this weird misconception of what blood pressure was. And then I started researching, because everyone I know has high blood pressure. So it's like, well, what's going to happen if you have high blood pressure? and the other thing I noticed was it fluctuates all day. If you're eating, you just ate, your blood pressure is going to be high. If you just ran, it's going to be higher. If you just woke up, it's going to be different. So there's different times of the day that blood pressure. So, and then I started testing it. So I would write down, I have this little book, I keep it right over here. And I don't know, maybe once or twice a week, which is a lot for most people, I take my blood pressure. I take it first thing in the morning. I take it before I eat anything. You're supposed to sit down for 3 to 5 minutes before you take it. And that's why at the doctor's office, they try to have you sit down for a couple of minutes before they come in and take it, if they're doing it right. So I just read a lot about blood pressure and found a way to lower it. Mine was probably 130 to 132 over 90 or something, which I think does fall into pre-hypertension categories, though I know they've been changing those throughout the years. But I found, like right now, I think mine's 110 over 70. So I've been able to bring it down a huge amount without really changing much. What I did was I started researching last year, toward the end of last year, I started researching electrolytes for running purposes and stuff, sodium being our most important electrolyte. Another weird, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but they're telling everybody to stop taking sodium, which is really weird. Like cut back on sodium, especially old people. And it's like the most important thing for us. It's what holds our most important thing to us, which is water. So sodium's a really weird topic. We could do a conversation on that alone, but bottom line is one of the most important electrolytes for regulating blood pressure is potassium. And our daily recommended allowance or whatever for potassium is like 4,000 milligrams, like 4 grams. So and I started looking at the foods. I drink coconut water every morning. I love it. I learned about it when we went to Hawaii, and just how good it is, because it's nature's sports drink. It's got sodium, calcium, potassium. It's got all the electrolytes,
Yeah.
But in a good glass of that, it's only got like 400 maybe milligrams of potassium. So it's really hard for us to get the recommended allowance of potassium. And those recommended allowances are typically the low end of it. Like we should be a little higher than that. So I started trying to figure, well, what can I eat, that doesn't raise my blood sugar too much? Because, ultimately that's the goal. That will give me 4,000 milligrams of potassium. And spinach turned out to be the answer to that. So I'll make a smoothie every morning. I'll throw some protein powder in it, and which will make me not hungry for many hours, because that's what protein does. And then I put a big handful of spinach in there. And I noticed within 3 days of doing that, my blood pressure started dropping.
Wow.
And so I started doing that in December. Yeah, it's like the easiest thing ever. So I'll just buy a huge tub at Kroger's of organic, baby spinach leaves or whatever. And it costs maybe $6. And just one handful a day, sometimes twice if I work out. I'll make a smoothie after I work out, mainly for the protein, but I'll throw some more spinach in there. And like I said, I've dropped it almost 40 whatever in the systolic, which is just unbelievable to me. And when I learned this, I was like, holy shit,
Right.
I know everyone I know, I should say, has high blood pressure. So I started telling it to people. And out of everyone I told, one person started doing it. And I was like, what the hell? Why is nobody doing this? It's like the easiest thing to do. And that one dude found out about it. And I think I hit him at the right time, because he's like, he was on blood pressure medicine. And he's like, I don't want to take this anymore. And his was, I think he was saying it was pretty high. It was like 170 was the systolic. And he got it down in like a week of doing these smoothies to 130.
Wow.
And he was so happy. So I was just like, this is great, man. So I've told all kinds of people. And like I said, nobody does it. So I don't know.
Maybe people will do it after listening this. Yeah.
I hope so. And if they do, I want them to reach out and say something. Because like I said, I was so happy to find this out, and it's so easy to implement, and it's so affordable. And if you read about what happens, what could happen with high blood pressure for a sustained amount of time, you'll want to make some changes.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up salt too. I'm a huge fan of electrolytes. I drink them every day. I'm always, asking clients to do that. And salt has been demonized, for many
Oh
years.
yeah.
And I grew up with my mom hearing like, salt is bad. That's what they were all being taught. And so we didn't have a
Yep.
lot of salt growing up. And now they see me salt my food. They see me drink salt. And so I've had to teach them. And there's a really great book called The Salt Fix that has
Oh
been
yeah.
really beneficial for me. And I recommend it to people too, who maybe don't know a lot about it, but you're right. That could totally be an entire conversation because it's so in depth, and there's a lot of myths to debunk, if you will, on the salt
Oh yeah.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah, salt got put in the same category that milk did, and meat, and
Yep.
eggs, and butter, and all the. And what's weird is like if you look back at kind of the things that have been demonized, it's like all of what our great grandparents ate and were healthy.
Exactly.
It's so weird. Yeah, and that James D. Nick Antonio or whatever that wrote the Salt Fix book, he's written some other great books about minerals,
immunity.
I'm reading his right now about fats.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of it, but it's unbelievable, and it's a little scary. But it's talking about all the oils.
Yeah.
And essentially, to sum it up, is olive oil is great for us, and we've known that forever. But all these other newer oils are not.
Yeah.
And they don't work the same, and they're not the same. So that book's just blown my mind. He's a very smart dude. And like you said, he's the one that kind of blew the top off the sodium thing with, research and all these reports and studies and whatnot. So, yeah, I personally had a salt story, and I think we're in about 50 minutes here. I don't want to go too far into it, but it changed my life as far as what salt is. Very short. I do have to mention it, but I went for a run. It was in like July. It was 90 something degrees out, and I ran at like midday. And I don't know why I did it. I just, sometimes I feel like nothing can break me, and so I just do it. And I ran, and I came back, and we had some friends coming over. So normally I would have ate and did like a pre-run shake or whatever. I got a 32-ounce bottle of water and drank it because I sweated completely through everything. And then we walked down to the creek with the kids to play for a little bit, let them jump in the creek. And I filled a 40-ounce water bottle and took it down there and sipped on it while I was down there. And by the time I came back, I noticed I had drank that whole thing. So I was like, man, I'm really thirsty. So right then I had drank 72 ounces of water after sweating a ton.
Yeah.
And then I got in the shower, and I remember looking in the mirror right before or after, I can't remember. We have a mirror in our shower for shaving. And I remember looking in the mirror, and my eyes were like jumping, like vertically, like very shaky, jumpy.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, that is really bizarre. Like, I don't know what's going on here. So I kind of cut the shower short, came out and sat down on the ground and was like, man, I don't really feel very good. And I started getting real annoyed by all the noises in the house, the kids talking and like the traffic. And I was just like real agitated. I was like, man, this is not right. So I called my wife and I said, I think we're going to have to go to the emergency room. She's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't know if I'm overhydrated or underhydrated. It was the weirdest feeling I've ever had.
Yeah.
And I started getting this real brain fog thing going on. And she gave me advice that I would have gave her, which is amazing. And ultimately saved me, tons of money, not having to go to the ER. She said, drink some coconut water. I was like, well, all right. And I started drinking of it, and I started coming out of this weird fog. And it's because it has sodium in it.
Yes.
I didn't know any of this until like way later on. But so I just kept sipping the coconut water, and it came back. Now I know all I have to do is just lick some salt.
Yep. Yeah.
And it would have bounced me back like immediately. But, I think that's the point of life is to just, from your mistakes, you gain knowledge, and then hopefully you share those with people. And that's what I'm trying to do here is I want to share some of these basic things that, so people don't necessarily have to learn them the way I did.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about having kids is I can share all this stuff with them. It just gets weird when they become teenagers and they're like, Dad, I don't care. You're like, oh, man.
Right. No, they're lucky
sucks.
to have you and your wife teaching them about these things. That's hopefully the generation of people, of kids that are coming out, right? We're going to learn these things to pass it along. And then it's going to be the norm. Everyone will be walking around with amber tinted blue light blocking glasses at night. Everyone will be drinking electrolytes, right? That's the goal.
I think so. And I think it is catching on. Sometimes I get frustrated that it's not happening. And my wife reminds me, like, not everybody's like you, like not everybody's in a hurry to find everything out. Like, just, in other words, have more patience with this. But yeah, my daughter's telling me, what style the kids at her school are wearing for blue blockers. And it's like, man, when I started selling blue blockers, I couldn't pay people to wear them.
Yeah.
Because people thought it was weird. They'd look weird, but now it's becoming trendy. So yeah, there's some good stuff that comes out, I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I know you wanted to go over a couple more topics. Do you want to go over those too? They're pretty important, actually.
Yeah, the two last ones I wanted to talk about that I think are obviously helpful is alcohol and sleep. Alcohol is something that I've experimented with, pretty much my whole life. And that's one that when you make a mistake, you notice it. It's very painful. And unlike, say, EMF or anything, kind of any of the other topics. So yeah, the things that I've noticed that kind of turn the needle the most or move the needle the most is alcohol. And everybody knows this, but I just have to say it because it's super important, is alcohol is a diuretic. What it does is, and I've seen the numbers to how it works, it's kind of over the top, and I'm not going to half cite them. I just want to tell you, when you drink one glass of wine or beer or something, you're going to pee out more than you just consumed. So you're gonna pee out more water than you consumed in that glass.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, 2 or 3 drinks, you're going to be dehydrated. It's a trick that bodybuilders do. They'll drink some vodka or something pre-stage for a couple reasons. It'll make them less nervous for performance, and then it'll make them dehydrated, which shows more of their veins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yes, alcohol dehydrates you. So when I go out and I have some drinks, St. Patty's Day was last week, you better believe I drank a shit ton of water. I drank it before, during, and after. And that makes the biggest freaking difference. That moves the needle the most. Second is electrolytes. We touched on it. If you're going to have alcohol, you're going to deplete all kinds of minerals and vitamins, from B vitamins that have to do with brain and cognition. You're going to pee out those first. You're going to lose a lot of your minerals. Minerals are huge, but electrolytes it throws off your potassium, like we talked about earlier, for blood pressure. Sodium, you're going to need sodium. One time I was at a bar and somebody offered me a shot. I don't really do shots anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm beyond my college years, but the shot they were offering blew my mind, and I had to go home and research it. It was called a pickleback. It was a shot of Jameson for St. Patty's Day, and then you take a shot of pickle juice afterwards. And it made me wonder, like, why would you want to do that? Like, your breath would smell like pickles, in a social environment. It doesn't make sense. But what it does, it allows the next drink you have, which is hopefully water, that sodium to bind to that water. So it helps prevent a hangover. So getting back to my point here is, if you can drink a lot of water and you can take electrolytes, and I recommend the brand NUUN, Noon or None. I don't really know how they pronounce it, but I learned about them and started taking them. They're little tablets that you drop in your water bottle. So if you're going out and you have a water bottle, drop that in there. It'll have 300 milligrams of sodium. It tastes a little bit like a Gatorade, and it's going to make you feel way better. So if you were to take that before you went out drinking, or just before you went to bed, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely huge difference. And then there's products that you can buy. Another company that I found out about on, I think the bus is here. The other company that I found out about on Shark Tank is called Cheers, the company Cheers. And they make a capsule called Restore. And you would take 2 or 3 of these right before you go to bed, and it's got a lot of antioxidants. It's got ginger for your stomach, and then it's got a chemical in there that essentially speeds up the metabolization or metabolizing of alcohol.
Okay.
That's a great product. That's another one of those that I started taking, and I noticed it works amazing. Like I said, you take about 2 or 3 pills at the end of the night. Each pill essentially costs $1. So it's about $3 that you would take, and it makes a huge difference in your stomach, how it feels, but how you feel the next day ultimately.
Nice.
So I totally recommend that.
Okay.
And that's another thing that I've mentioned to a lot of people, and I don't know anyone who's bought it, which just blows my mind. But yeah, that's kind of that. There's a lot more. I've researched and tested a lot of stuff on this, just because I think that it affects a lot of people in a real negative way. I mean, you go out and you have some fun one night, it just craps out your whole next day.
Yeah.
And I know the solution. And a lot of people don't like even talking about these kind of hacks because they say, well, you just shouldn't drink. And it's like, well, yeah, you're going to tell me I shouldn't have the cake at the birthday too. It's like, there's all kinds of things we probably shouldn't do, but I don't know. This is life, and I think we have to enjoy it. And the way I like to look at things is, let's just do what we're doing, but let's do it better and smarter. So once you know how things work, like alcohol, you'll, I think, respect them more. But you'll also you'll do it differently. You'll take care of yourself a little better in the end. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really great advice on that. Anything else before we wrap up? And again, I've been taking notes. I'm going to have links to all of these things. I might reach out to you to double check on some of them, but anything else before we wrap up on some of these, health hacks or health tidbits Absolutely. Or whatever we want to call them?
How much time do we have left? 5 minutes or more?
Just another probably 4 to 5 minutes. Yep.
Okay. I quickly want to touch on sleep because that's probably the most important topic, but just 2 things that have made a huge difference for me is mouth tape at night.
Yes.
I know that's probably a lot of your customers have heard about it. I just buy it by the roll now and rip it in half to make it thinner. And so I don't buy the expensive ones that I used to do forever, but I've taped my mouth shut for probably 2 or 3 years now. I can't even keep track anymore. And I can't really sleep without doing it. I had broke my nose so many times when I was younger that I ended up breathing through my mouth way longer than I could control. And so this makes a huge difference. When you breathe through your mouth at night, you dehydrate yourself.
Yes.
You can see that if you breathe into a mirror, you'll see fog on there. That fog is water. You want to trap your water, and you don't want to be leaking it all night. Magnesium glycinate has been huge for me. It changes sleep. It changes relaxation. Look into it. I take it every night. It's unbelievable. But yeah, essentially, one last thing I wanted to say that's a little bit off topic, but it's just something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Is I read about this study a while ago where these scientists took these mice and put them in these cups full of water, and they would put them in there. And then, have you heard this one?
No.
The study. For whatever reason, it just came up in my head the last couple of weeks, and haven't shared it with anybody. They put these mice in the water, and they're swimming around, and they time to see how long they swim until they give up, which turned out to be about 15 seconds. And the mice would literally give up and just drown to the bottom. And what they would do at that point is pull the mice out and save them. And then they would set them, let them chill out for a little bit, kind of get their wits about themselves. And then they would put them back in the glass of water and time them. And the second time they timed them, they all swam for over 60 hours. And it's like, oh, weird. Like, why would they swim for 15 seconds to give up and then swim for 60 hours? And it's like, man, it just blew my mind. And it got me thinking, like, I think when you know that whatever you're shooting for, you're going to hit it, you're going to be saved, or your goal is going to be accomplished, or whatever it is, it could be a business thing or a health, attainment or whatever. But if you know it's there, you'll continue to fight for it. And I find that fascinating. And I want people to think about that.
Yes.
Themselves and see what they think about. Why would these mice keep swimming?
Right. Because they knew that they weren't necessarily in danger. They knew they'd get saved at some point. And I like that. I'm really glad you brought that up because that does relate to health and a lot of things in life, but particularly in health, and especially people who are listening to this are interested in health. They're probably on some health protocol or they have some health goals they're trying to reach. So definitely applicable. I'm glad you brought that up.
I think it can attain everything. I've come across a lot of people that are fighting to get their health back.
Yeah.
They're using our red lights to try to heal from something. But I also talk to a lot of people that are starting new businesses. I talk to a lot of people that are trying to get into college sports or pro sports. So it's like, if you just think about and visualize it actually happening and, everything you want coming true, but you have to never give up, then you'll get it. And I think people these days just easily give up on things too early. They take the first, speed bump or the first failure, and they say, it's not meant for me. But if you just keep swimming, I think you'll get there. But you have to picture it. You have to envision it. So
I love that.
I'd like to leave it at that.
Yes, such a great way to close it out. Yeah. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for spending time with me again today and sharing so much wisdom and all these tips and tricks and maybe hacks for some people I think are going to be very, very helpful. And like I said, I'm going to put some links in there, contact information for Kyle. He's open. Please reach out to him for further questions or maybe, hey, how do you implement this? Or I'm having trouble trying to get this into my day. What do you recommend? Reach out to me if you have questions. We live for this. We love this stuff. So do not hesitate. The more people we have doing this stuff, the better. Right. So absolutely. So again, I appreciate your time and I will have everybody reach out to you in the show notes and we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I so appreciate your interest in holistic health and hope you learned something you can apply to your own life. References from this episode are linked in the show notes, as well as links to find me, Evie, on social media platforms. If you'd like to learn more about services from Holistically Restored, click on the link in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this content, I encourage you to subscribe and also leave a review on Apple Podcast. Until next time, be well, my friends.